I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. We continue with our daily series talking about how our community is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been reaching out to public officials, to department heads of state agencies, to leaders of community organizations and businesses even that at one level or another have a relationship with the Minnesota Department of Health in the state's ongoing and overriding mission to inform the residents of our state about what it takes to be safe and how we move as a community, as a state, through the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, today I'm pleased to have a dear friend and leader in our community, Bill Finney, who's Undersheriff of Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. Bill Finney, who people may know as Corky, became Minnesota's first African-American police chief when he took over the St. Paul Police Department in 1992. In January 2019, newly elected Sheriff Bob Fletcher appointed Bill Finney to the position of Undersheriff Community Outreach in the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. Bill has over 35 years of law enforcement experience, and he brings extensive accomplishments and success to the city of St. Paul and to the entire county and actually the region. But the county is a unique proposition because it's composed of 16 different cities and 2 townships with over 30 different languages spoken. And the success of his work includes work he's done to include the 6 school districts and 249 schools and the 885,000 plus diverse student population in Ramsey County. So as the top ranking undersheriff, he heads up community relations and efforts to diversify the department through recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion. He's the main liaison to the St. Paul City Council, to the mayor's office, and the police department. And obviously, he's the perfect strategist for an increasingly growing multicultural, diverse community that's exploding throughout Ramsey County. Here's some quick facts about Ramsey County. Ramsey County is the most fully developed and densely populated county in the state, as well as one of the most diverse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau of 2016 estimates, the county population is about the white population in Ramsey County is 338,000, it's at a 1% decrease in population. The Black population is about 64,000, and that represents an 18% increase. Hispanic population, 41,000, 14% gain, and the Asian population is 82,000 at 39% jump. So it's a really changing demographic, changing community. Bill Finney, thank you for being here. How you doing, sir? Good to see you.
I'm doing quite well, Al. The sheriff graciously gave me another assignment recently this summer. I'm also in charge of the adult detention center. Most people know that as being the Ramsey County Jail. So that's one of the responsibilities also. And it's challenging. But I've been in law enforcement, as you know, since 1969. And so that's a fair amount of time being around public service, and it's basically a job I love doing.
Well, talk about what your department is doing to be one of the leading edges of the effort to mitigate COVID-19. What particular specific role does the Sheriff's Department play in connecting, guiding, leading the residents of Ramsey County?
Well, you know, the sheriff and staff have been proactive in what we want to do once the COVID crisis appeared to us and made us understand that this was not a short-term deal. So we started out early last spring of realizing that there were people that needed services that they couldn't get. They didn't have the means, or they were fearful of going out and being exposed to the virus. And so we at the Sheriff Department took up that task. So we talked to our elderly people and assisted living, high rises, and other places. If they needed somebody to pick up groceries for them, we did that. And then there's someone to go pick up their medications for them at the store, we did that. And if they needed whatever, we did that. And then later on, that evolved into understanding that there's a whole lot of hunger out here. Mm-hmm. And so through the considerable contacts that the Ramsey County Sheriff has, we were able to get food donated to us from different sources that we could distribute. And we did that all through last year and are currently still doing. We call that our help program. Mm-hmm. And so we find that it's a greater, this great country of ours, there should be no one that's hungry. But yet and still, the reality is there are many people that are. And so they don't know where to get the food. They don't have the means to get it, or they're embarrassed to ask. Mm-hmm. So we find those things out, and we provide sites through a lot of our community churches, Mount Olivet Church and St. Paul, as well as a couple others, Hallie Q. Brown Center, and other centers across the city of St. Paul are partners in helping us distribute food to the needy. And so we've been doing that. In mm-hmm. terms of internally, mm-hmm. The normal daily population prior to COVID happening was about 400 inmates in the Ramsey County Jail daily. Mm-hmm. We decided that we need to take a look at that, because the last thing in the world we wanted to do was to have a population of individuals that were exposed to a virus and be able to shut down that very necessary facility. So we basically cut the population in half. We coordinated with the Ramsey County courts, and we got the ability to defer misdemeanor arrest. Basically, instead of incarcerating a person, issuing a citation and say, you report to court on another time. But we are now averaging about 200 people a day as opposed to 400. So we're trying to keep COVID-19 out of our jails. And a lot of times, staff, because staff come and go, sometimes staff is responsible for accidentally bringing in that. We have a check and balance system at the jailhouse, and we've been fortunate so far to keep a large breakout from happening.
And so it sounds like the pandemic is encouraging or forcing, requiring that you shift the policy towards who is incarcerated, who enters in, and how long people stay in the jail. Is that true?
That is quite true, Al. That's just those things that are misdemeanors that really the person's likelihood of being a threat to a larger community. We can answer those questions. We don't incarcerate now. We just issue them a citation and have them report to court on a particular day.
So what does that mean for the future, Corky? Does that mean that, say, by March or June, we all have the vaccinations, life begins to go back to normal? Will policing go back to normal? Will the strategy and philosophy behind arrest and detention go back to normal? Normal being a process that puts you at a population of 400 or so inmates a day. Or is this pandemic encouraging a shift in the model altogether? And will that shift in the model have consequences beyond the pandemic? What do you think?
Well, it's certainly given us opportunity to take a review of the process that we had in the past. Mm-hmm. At the Ramsey County Detention Center, our customer are the law enforcement agencies that are out there doing, law enforcement procedures, and they make an arrest and they expect us to house them. That's our job. That's what we exist for on Ramsey County Adult Detention Center. However, we're now seeing that, currently police service is being reviewed, and people are saying, well, some places close to St. Paul, do we need as many cops? Do we need cops at all? Should we defund? Should we redefine? And I think the process of taking a look at what it is we do and how we do it is very, very valid. Mm-hmm. Should we defund? Well, no. What are you going to do? I think that's wrong-headed. Mm-hmm. We do have people out here that are predators. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think anybody being truthful, recognizing there are people out here that will take advantage of other people. And some of them do that to the extent of being very, very dangerous in terms of firearms, et cetera. So those individuals probably have earned a right to have a jail cell.
Great.
And so we're in the business of taking dangerous people off the streets of St. Paul and giving them a place to stay until they realize the error of their ways. But in terms of is 400 a regular, is that really a necessary number? Well, we're seeing now that maybe it's not. Maybe it's not, because we've been existing having people, a lower population, exactly half. Half the population. Well, that saves the county money. That saves people from being away from their families because they've done something boneheaded, like they're out there drunk and driving. Good people, but bad judgment. And they got arrested for driving under the influence of liquor. Well, okay, we have to keep them until they sober. And then we can release them. So some of those individuals probably don't need to be incarcerated, because other than the fact that they have poor judgment when it comes to chemicals, they're decent people. So there's lots of situations that are like that we're taking a hard look at. And we have a process, we have a bail reform program going on right now. There's a lot of people who get arrested who are in jail because they can't get out. They can't bail. There's nothing to say that they won't appear for a court, other than the fact that in the past we held on to them. Well, we're thinking that maybe that's unnecessary. So we're going to take a look at that. And like I said, I've been in law enforcement since 1969, and I know there's some people that deserve to be in a jail cell, and there's a whole lot of them that don't deserve to be in a jail cell. We get their attention. We take them down to the jail cell. We book them because they needed to be for whatever they did. And then we allow them to go on their own recognizance, or there's a bail that they can afford, they go. But there's a lot of people that can't afford a bail. And so they end up, by default, being here with us as our guests, and they really don't need to be. We also have another challenge that we work with, the homeless. My God, Al, there's a lot of homeless people out there. And I think your listeners will probably know that as you drive around the metropolitan area, you see little tents set up, little camps. And you wonder, well, how in the world in Minnesota? Well, this year, so far, the weather's kind of gone along with it. We haven't had the real cold Minnesota December that we're kind of used to.
Right.
We can expect it to get colder as we go into January and February, however, and those people are going to be exposed. So now, we don't want people to be exposed to the point where we lose lives. And so we're finding places that we're going to be able to put them in a warm spot and keep them safe. So the sheriff's been very, very active in insisting that we do that. And we've got some other resources now that are available, some different places. Now, some of these individuals don't really want to come in literally out of the cold. And there's a lot of people that are mentally ill.
Mental health is a big issue. Big issue.
Yes. And there's a lot of people that are chemically dependent, and they don't want anybody telling them they can't have their chemical of choice.
Right.
Well, if they go into one of these shelters, well, they can't do that. Right. And so they'd rather stay out in the cold. So we had to sometimes insist that they go inside so we don't have a casualty.
So, I'm thinking about, and you kind of opened the door for this conversation, Chief Finney, the Sheriff Finney, describe, if you would, from your point of view, the convergence, the confluence of COVID-19, the pandemic, and what I've been calling the pandemic of 1619. 1619 being the arrival of Africans who were enslaved by this country and the legacy that brings us to today. Those things, I think, revealed specifically in the George Floyd incident and the nation's current call, and actually the world's call for justice and reform. And you mentioned that you threw the phrase out, defund the police. That's one of the terms that's arisen out of this. How do these things converge in your mind and from your point of view as a elected official and also as a law enforcement officer?
As a law enforcement officer, when George Floyd incident occurred, I did not know a police officer, not a single police officer that justified that.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know it. I was proud of my officers when I heard them say, that's just wrong. That has to be corrected. And so that was the case. The officers certainly understood the rightful indignation and the protest. Now we get to burning buildings now, that's another matter. Now we have to protect the public safety and property.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people start burning things, we have to take law enforcement action. There's that. COVID-19 disproportionately affects poor people
Mm-hmm.
and people of color. And we see that quite a bit regularly as we go about our duties. We know people that have succumbed to this terrible virus. And so, boy, these vaccinations can't get through the community fast enough.
Right.
And so we have to deal with that, how we enforce the law, the fact that one of the things that has become politicized and should never have been politicized are these things right here. I proudly wear that. I have a wife that was formerly the superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And we are both what they call that vulnerable age. I reached that point. Yep. She has. And last thing in the world I want to do is to infect her by something I do down here, mm-hmm. and then have it affect my grandbabies.
Right.
And people that I care about and love, or even people I just come in contact with. I don't want that. So I proudly wear my mask when I'm outside in an area or in contact with other people. I socially distance. I insist that my deputies in the jail and elsewhere put on your mask when you're moving about. When you're inside the adult detention center, Under Sheriff Finney wants to see people wearing masks. Mm-hmm. Everybody that works there is an investment in a resource that the county is invested for, and we don't want you getting unnecessarily sick or because you were exposed to somebody who had some issue with this piece of cloth.
So that brings the question, are the inmates wearing masks? Are they requesting or resisting, or is it both or none, neither?
We have some of all of that. When they come in as an inmate, we quarantine them, mm-hmm. and we test them. Mm-hmm. And if they come up positive, then we isolate them if they're going to be with us. Some of those people are not going to be held that long because they get released. Mm-hmm. They bail or whatever else, and they're still, COVID positive. But while they're here, they're quarantined. And like I said, some of our inmates, because they're people that have normal lives outside of the adult detention center, we tell them, be careful who it is and how you interact with people out there, because we don't want you bringing that back into our facility and exposing people. We've had some cases of that. Mm-hmm. We've had some cases, and those individuals are told to return home, quarantine, and isolate themselves until such time as you get some negatives. And so we enforce that, and that's one of those situations that I'm not very flexible on. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not flexible at all. So, but there's a lot of needy people. There are a lot of people that are sick. And for any of your listeners that don't believe that COVID is real, and to me, it's surprising that number of people that still think COVID is kind of a hoax. Right. I don't get that. And somehow I'm thinking that wearing a mask is a betrayal of freedom. Please don't think that way. Mm-hmm. Think about people you care about. Think about people that you come in contact with. Think about the society in general. But it's not that big an imposition for you to wear this when you're out around other people. Socially distance. I've been fortunate so far, and I come in contact with hundreds of people a day. Mm-hmm. but I wear my protection. I wash my hands.
Mhm.
We sanitize. We have hand sanitizer all over the place, available to not only the staff but available to the public when they come to our public building, your public building, by the way,
Mhm.
and interact with us. Utilize this stuff. Wash your hands, sanitize, and let's keep this out of the building. So COVID-19 is a very real deal. It's a threat to a person's longevity. And even if you don't get sick yourself, you can get infected and infect someone else. So uh, believe me as a person, if you ever believe me in my years of public service, please believe me now. Protect yourself, protect your community.
Chief Finney, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation, as always. Always too short, but we'll do it again. You know,
Let's do it, Al.
I want to commend you for your career of visionary and principled, uh, uh, integrity-filled leadership and service to our community. So thank you so very much. And our city and our county and our area are all the better because you have been in a leadership role in so many ways. And thank you, Bill Finney. Thank you,
It's
Kofi
my
Finney.
pleasure.
And
All right.
nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too, Brenda.
Take care. I'm Al
Thank you.
McFarlane. We'll continue, and thank you so much for being a part of this. Now, if you like this conversation, we're doing these programs on COVID-19 every day through the 31st of December, and we're glad to have leaders like Bill Finney, William Finney, to talk to you about their particular role, their strategies, their policies to help us be successful in not being victimized by COVID-19 and how we create sustainability, healthy strategies in our neighborhoods.